presenting to you is lived experience. A lot of people talk about it. I've lived it. And you can see highlighted in blue the course of how much I oversaw. Hundreds of billions of API calls, over 48,000 endpoints, 25 million plus vehicles, 6 million plus consumers. So I've seen it and done it at scale. So like any good presenter, let consulting the Gartner Oracle, and Gartner is basically telling by 2028, agents are going to be your biggest API consumer. We know they're not passive; they think, they act. You know, AI is becoming a machine-driven arm race, so the bad guys are creating agents as well as the good guys. And Gartner advises companies to double down on API security. Why is that? Well, newsflash: agents are APIs in disguise, and they follow the rules mostly. There's anything you walk away with here, agentic AI security is an API first problem. If you don't have APIs first, you will not get agentic ACI security. Okay. Agentic AI is built on top of your API foundations, and agents will amplify every weakness that you have in your API ecosystem. So if you're building it on sand, you're going to have problems. Okay. In the common thing, sands are great to build demos, but to build systems that you can rely on, you really got to build it on a solid foundation. So high level MCP, what is it? Very simple. MPC is an API. Newsflash. It's a structured context sharing between LLM clients and MCP servers. Okay. However, like any API, I don't have to use an LLM client to speak with it. I can just talk directly to the MPC server, to the API endpoints. As long as I can read and write JSON RPC messages, I don't need any LLM. So, two different attack paths to MCPs. You can do it through prompt injection, jailbreaking, and all that stuff, or it can go right to the source, go right to the APIs themselves. Okay, so MCP has the same fundamental risk of any other API, plus these LLM specific threats. Agents are eating APIs. Okay, in fact, I did a post today on LinkedIn on the Internet of Agents. Okay, an agent, what is that? You go to the good old dictionary definition. They operate on behalf of a principal. Okay, so you've probably used them in your life, a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, for example, if you're buying a house. Okay, so who are these agents representing? What do they do? Okay, and ultimately, the problem with the agents is they cross trust boundaries. Okay, with little to no oversight. Okay, so you're going to find the theme of this is trust, and these boundaries are very, very important. And default failure mode is runaway cost. I've read things where people created an agent, and over the period of a weekend, they had $15,000 in token costs because the agent, they didn't have circuit breakers in, and the agents weren't smart enough, and they just kept talking 429s and kept asking for more and more. Attackers are eating AI. Okay, Anthropic in November, they disclosed the first documented case of a large-scale agentic AI attack. What did they do? Basically, they broke the attack into thousands of micro attacks, where each attack appeared innocent on its own, but together it was an attack chain. And their safety filters never saw the big picture, was unable to discern the intent. So you're going to see this a lot. The transactions were legitimate, while the intent is not. So you're going to see this word throughout the rest of this presentation, intent, because that is the secret sauce. Always remind people, REST APIs are stateless. Okay, big word. What does it mean? Well, a nice picture. They're like a hotel front desk that every time you go to it, it's like they want to know, who are you? Show me your credentials to request services. They have no memory. They have no idea that this guest requested over the course of this week 100 free razors from the front desk. Their intent is to maximize free razors. Okay, the stateless architecture of APIs makes anomaly detection challenging because remember, APIs process requests, not intent. API attacks unfold chapter by chapter. Book, death by 1,000 API attacks. And what you'll find out, and what I've seen is the best API attacks read like a dull chapter in this book. Nothing breaks or looks wrong. By the time anyone notices, the story is over. So you're going to see all these things. This is an example of a loyalty bot. Give everyone rewards points. Insecure APIs allow anyone to redeem the points. In this point, you have AI or API gone wild. So the most effective API attacks are persistent. Remember, you have all these stateless API endpoints. And if I can craft together, and take advantage of the statelessness, a unique set of calls that I can get to the prize, I've won. Okay, I've got the dollars. In the past, it was like, well, give me a single call. I'm going to do SQL injection or prompt, whatever the case may be. Those are immediate attacks, easily handled by firewall rules. These unknown attacks, they can take anywhere from hours or days to weeks to unfold. This is when process becomes a weapon. Okay, so business logic abuse, brand new term, brand new OWASP top 10 list. They like to create their list. What does the data show us? Industry reports show attackers are shifting focus to these business logic abuse. Again, like I showed you in the previous one, these hide in plain sight across multiple stateless API transactions. And this is something agentic AIs excel at because they experiment, they try different things, they'll iterate, and they will uncover the right sequence of events or the right sequence of API calls to actually expose your business logic. So at the end of the day, business logic abuse allows attackers to cause harm using valid actions. The actions by themselves are legitimate, put together in a particular pattern, no longer. In fact, PCI 4.0, if you're part of that set of requirements, they have elevated logic abuse from a threat scenario to an explicit obligation that you're now required to monitor and detect threat business logic abuse. Compliance is not protection. You've heard this from cyber people all the time. This is an attack from August of 2025 where there were stolen credentials from SalesLoft Drift. Okay, and they used the SalesLoft Drift integrations to Salesforce to basically extract data via legitimate Salesforce APIs. The blast radius was huge. Over 700 companies basically had data taken out of their individual Salesforce instances. Yeah, and again, this is just one from one of the public disclosures, and I'm not going to the companies, but the quote is, the action appeared to enumerate all objects in our Salesforce environment. They basically, we took your database from you. The behavioral monitoring of Salesforce APIs would have surfaced as compromised much sooner. And we talked about earlier, and Dan was mentioning at the preview, many mature industry leaders have suffered from these third-party exploits. And if you look at SalesLoft Drift, you got the scorecard of, hey, we're ISO compliant, we have SOC Type 2, we have GPDR. Those mean nothing if you can't detect the things. Those are a point in time that says I passed the checklist and whatnot. Unless you're actively monitoring for the bad things, that's basically a badge. When you go to third party, you outsource trust without visibility. Okay. Again, many companies, they create a security blind spot. So again, going to Gartner, if you believe them, 75% of companies depend on third-party APIs to deliver critical business capabilities. And again, this is where agentic AI will, at the speed of machine, what took months to discover can now be found and exploited in minutes by AI agents. And again, from a security posture, companies inherit the risk posture of every third-party API or agent they consume. Like Dan called out, we use this third-party agent, it was compromised, it was sending email to bad actors. So I'd like you to meet the twins, as I call them. Agents and APIs are like conjoined twins. They're inseparable and interdependent. You can't have one without the other. And key thing to remember, an API call is an action. I'm doing something. It's a verb. While an agent is the entity responsible for that action. So it's really, really important. APIs are actions, and agent is responsible for that action. So again, basic 101, but people forget this. Identity and APIs, authentication, authorization, and context. So I'm adding the third thing, context. Together bind an API request to an identity. Okay. Every API call should include credentials that map a request to an identity and their privileges. You'll find out that, again, many API calls are on behalf of a user by non-human identities. Remember, an agent acts on as there's a principal and there's an agent. Okay. Always remember that. And in the industry, in legal, in security, operational context, defining who or what an agent is still an open challenge for many companies. So your effective security, you have to monitor the request, the identity, and its behavior patterns. So if you're not monitoring behavior, okay, you're already behind the 8 ball. Other one, attackers don't break in, they log in. Okay. APIs don't fail because of broken encryption. They fail when the wrong identity is trusted. That sales loss drift example I gave you. They trusted the wrong identity. They weren't monitoring for behavior. Yeah. Industry data shows that 95% of API attacks, 95% originate from authenticated identities. And we know this from the data. Everyone on this call, the most common and damaging attacks unfold when APIs execute requests without checking authorization and intent. The BOLAs, the broken function level authorization. No authorization check ensures that every API becomes an attack surface. If you're not doing that, there's a reason why those are number one on the top end list is because people aren't checking. Agents have an identity crisis, as I call it. Agents don't have their own identity in most places. They use credentials of the human or the workload that invoked it. Study from Asterisk Security, if you read it, if you get the opportunity, they highlighted that developers frequently embed API keys and long-lived credentials inside agents. And all the agents they studied and looked for, and it was a significant number, only 8.5% of them use secure delegation methods like OAuth. So think about that. Over 90% of them are used static or long-lived credentials. As a security person, that scares the heck out of me. Enterprise security relies on the joiner, mover, leaver process. So people join a company, they move in a company, and they leave a company, as well as credential rotation. These all assume humans and not autonomous actors. Okay, you got the Tower of Babel problem, as I call it. Agents speak NCP, while the systems they access expect OIDC, OAuth 2, API keys, or other types of authentications. Go back to that travel agent, what I showed you. Every one of those systems could span cloud, on-prem, or third-party platforms. And each of them has a distinct identity, trust, and policy model. Okay. And if your audit trails collapse, being that what happened when agents operate without their own identities and session context. Weak agent identity and access control are the largest threat in agentic AI. Now, I'll say that again. Weak identity and access control are the largest threat in agentic AI. That's what's got to be addressed. So what happens when you give AI agents the master key? For those who are fans of Lord of the Rings, the one ring to rule them all. Well, basically, I see companies giving the one token to rule them all. Okay. Non-human identities often perform the most powerful actions, and if you look, they're growing faster than human identities. And what you're seeing, and that's what the study showed, excessive agent permissions are baked into the ecosystem when credential choices favor simplicity. Give me an API key over security, on behalf of control. So, and the on behalf of controls assures that every agent action, everyone is anchored to verified identity, restricted to the minimum permissions required. And the message here is authorization can no longer be fixed, as every request requires context-aware evaluation. Okay. How many different systems now, third-party APIs, internal APIs, external APIs, to do one goal of an agent? It's likely to be multiple. So you gotta keep track of it. And what it boils down to is context. Context is the difference between API access and API abuse. So a lot of companies you talk to, it's like, well, don't worry, we have WAFs and API gateways. Yeah, which are good, and as part of defense in depth, absolutely you need them. However, they lack visibility beyond a single request. Again, request level inspection is blind to threats that emerge only across multiple actions. And business logic abuse is one of the examples I showed you. Intents remain hidden when the role, identity, transaction history, workflows, and user states are not observed over time. Now, remember that. I said you got all these requests, but again, intent is hidden in there unless you're looking for it. Deterministic API behavior reduces the AI risk. Okay. When I started back in the API security or the work that I did for Ford, this is what I started with. I'm an engineer. I think this way. When you build a house, okay, you come up with a design. Okay, and that's a design intent. Then you build it. Okay, did they actually build it according to the design? Most cases in a construction, they'll have a red line document, as they call it. This is how I actually really built. And then how is it actually consumed? Well, this room that I call the living room, I'm actually using it now as an office. Or, there's sins of omission. Yeah, there's really an interior escape room in there, but I didn't put it on the plans because, well, I didn't want people to know about it. So when that equation is out of balance, that's when bad things happen with APIs. Okay. So determinism is an important API security control, which makes APIs constrained and contract driven. The contract, the Swagger, the Open API document, is the source of truth all the way through when I intent, when I test it, and when I actually monitor for it. Whenever that is out of the case, okay, you have a defect at some point in time, whether it was intended or unintended. Why this is important. Deterministic API behavior blocks AI agents from inferring functionality or escalating privileges through trial and error. Your agents are going to try lots of things at machine speed. Okay. But if they're not allowed to do it because you have a strong contract, then yes. Determinism allows companies to more safely expose the APIs to AI agents. So simple rule, predictable API behaviors reduces opportunities for AI agents to cause harm. And tools like that, I'll put for AppySec. I said, how do you know that the build would match the design? Tools like AppySec, checking for the bolas and all, even before you put it out there. So there's lots of good tools that you can use to verify the as designed equals the as built. So engine trouble, tales from the API garage. I'm giving you a peek in it. These are real things, and I could list a lot more that I discovered through a continuous API monitoring of all those endpoints and all that you saw. And the list is huge. Okay. But the one thing I can say across all of them, attackers prioritize APIs and business logic that translate quickly into revenue. Okay. So all these magic things, people are doing this, blah, blah, blah. No, they're doing it to make money. So I can turn this into revenue pretty quickly. So that is the intent for almost 90+% of the API abuse you're going to find. How quickly can I monetize it? Okay, so how do you tame a wild AI agent? Stuff I talked about. You got to worry about identity, behavior detection, look at event chains, have continuous authorization, visibility into your APIs, policy enforcement. You have to have guardrails, kill switches. So when the guy comes for the asking for the fifth razor, it's like, no, sorry, you've already had 4 of them. The telemetry itself. Again, while they're interesting, from a corporate perspective, once deployed, AI outcomes are a responsibility of the company. And if you cannot answer these questions, the regulators, legals, customer view, how can you answer? Why did the agent do this? On whose behalf? With what authority? Using what data? With what impact? If you're not monitoring your APIs continuously, you will not be able to answer those questions. So, API protection matters more than ever. All agents work with a goal. My funny story there. goal, make me a snowball. One tiny snowball request can result in infinite chaos. Again, summarizing, attackers prioritize APIs that translate quickly into revenue. Attacks have moved beyond exploits to business logic abuse. Regulatory frameworks now require companies to address them. The biggest blind spot is third-party APIs and third-party agents. By 2028, agents will be your dominant API consumer. AI is becoming a force multiplier for API attacks. And then weak IAM will accelerate the BOLA, BEFLA, and unrestricted consumption abuse. So from the perspective of a company, API and API security has emerged as a material risk. It's not just this good thing to do, it's a material risk if you don't do it, depending on the company, requiring up to board level attention. So time to eat the frog. What does that mean? It's a quote from Mark Twain is, eating the frog is people procrastinate. They put off the hardest things first, so they want to do the easiest things. You got to eat the frogs. In all these things that I did at Ford, I ate many frogs because you have to do it. So these are the frogs that you need to eat. Treat APIs as the primary attack surface. You got to shift from simple request validation to defense in depth API security controls. You got to apply robust identity and delegated access control for AI agents with clearly defined trust boundaries. Shift from one-time assessment to continuous observation of third-party APIs and agents. Assume every credential could be compromised, because you have to. 95% of people don't break in, they log in. You have to prioritize detecting abnormal behavior. You want to move from reactive threat hunting to proactive threat catching, because I don't know about you, when I go fishing or hunting, I don't do the hunt. I go there actually to catch something. And then finally, prioritize business logic abuse rather than just meeting the basic compliance requirements. Ultimately, the best API incident is one that never happens. Okay, last bit of wisdom. So you want to remember the simple slogan. For those of you who are lovers of coffee, I took the Dunkin' logo where America runs on Dunkin'. So to agents run on API. So always remember that. So anyway, that's a lot of material I threw you, but it kind of gives you the big picture.
Thank you, Darren. And we took 5 minutes away from you at the beginning. Wow. I think we're all mesmerized by this, and there were a lot of folks asking if you'd be willing to share some of these slides. So let us know if we can share those. But I did want to ask you a quick question. You talked about the contract, right? And I tend to think about, like, when I'm thinking about a product or a feature, like, what is it meant to do, right? And I think contracts are often like positive centric, but with AI, is there the negative contract, like this thing should be able to do X, but it should definitely not do Y?
Yeah, so that's the misuse cases. Again, I'll give you two. Ebola is your typical misuse case. Okay, you have to test that in your testing, because I purely define that says, in order for this thing to work, you have to supply me a token with these roles or these scopes or whatever. Okay, that's great. However, if the actual implementation doesn't test it, I don't care what the contract said. If the as built doesn't match the as designed, they're going to get through. And remember,
Yeah.
agents will do that at the speed of machine, much quicker than you and I will, to be able to exploit those types of things. So scoping your contract down, just like a business contract, you have to think of it like that. If you don't write a tight business contract as a company, you're out of business, because there'll
Yeah.
be loopholes where people will exploit you
Yeah.
up the yin yang. So you really have to treat it like that. This is a business capability, with a contract that needs to be enforced.
Yeah. Now, my goodness. Well, we burned through another half hour so fast here. Jesse, are you giving us the hook?
I was a little bit, yeah, but I also just wanted to say thanks to Darren because that was an amazing presentation. I took a ton of notes during it. Fully echo everything that he's saying, and especially like needing to test Ebola, those sorts of things. Like, it has to be done. It's not a question of if, it
Yeah.
has to be done.
I asked the question, what happens when this occurs, not if, when. Change the question.
Exactly. Thanks so much for your time, Darren. Super appreciate you.